In this episode, I'm going to show you how to make one of my favorite dishes, dan dan noodles. We're going to be making noodles from scratch and then a tahini soy sauce. If you've never had tahini soy sauce, my God, it's gonna change your life. Topped off with a 5-spice beef. Let's get noodling. First up, we're going to need to make the noodles. Noodles are so easy to make, so don't be scared of making them. We're going to be using bread flour here. This is because it's got a higher gluten content, and to the bread flour we're going to add in baking powder. This is going to give the noodles that chew that you're looking for. It's the acidity in the baking powder that interacts with the gluten and gives that noodle that specific chew. I'm also going to add in a pinch of salt, chef's pinch again, and 86 grams of water. No, just boiled water to the dough. Okay, and give it a bit of a mix. It's quite a dry dough, so you're going to need to really work it. It'll start to come together like a shaggy mess. I'm going to take off this and we can start to knead. It'll almost look like sand, and then you're going to start to get in your hand and start like crunching it together. Also, everyone's flour is going to be different. It's also going to depend on the humidity in the day. So you kind of got to judge it for yourself slightly. So just use your intuition. If it feels a little bit dry, add a tablespoon more water. If it feels a bit wet, add a tablespoon more flour. So the dough's coming together. I'm just going to tip it out on the surface. I'm going to bring it together. And you want to pick up all your little pieces. They're all friends. And we're going to give it a little knead until it comes slightly smooth. It's never going to get properly smooth, but that's okay because we're going to be working the gluten in a pasta machine. This recipe absolutely needs a pasta machine unless you've got mad skills. I mean, in Japan, I've seen these ramen noodles getting made, and it's amazing the work they do. They roll the dough out into this massive sheet, and it's so good. I mean, I would love to be able to do that one day, but today is not that day. Okay, you've got to really get your shoulder in there just because it is quite a dry dough. Once the dough comes together, you can leave it to rest for about 10 minutes. So I'm just going to pop it back in the bowl, pop a plate on top and leave it to rest on the side while we make the rest of the dish. While the dough is resting, we're going to make tahini soy sauce. If you've never had tahini soy sauce before, this is going to change your world. It is so good. First up, we're going to need to toast some Szechuan peppercorns. If you haven't had these before, it's going to give that little bit of numbing sensation to your tongue. They're so good. It's underlying flavor within this sauce. I'm going to toast them off in a dry pan on about a medium heat for 2 to 3 minutes. This is just going to release the oils and flavors within the Szechuans. Then I'm going to be grinding them up in a pestle and mortar. While those are toasting off, I'm going to add in the rest of the ingredients for the tahini soy sauce. So I'm going to be mixing in tahini, obviously. So it's about 2 tablespoons of tahini with peanut butter. This is going to give it that ultra richness to the sauce. You can use any peanut butter you want, or if you don't like peanut butter, you can go with almond butter, or yeah. And if you're nut free, leave it out and just add in another tablespoon of tahini. Then we're going to be adding in the soy sauce. This is about 2 tablespoons. I mean, it's gonna give that almost caramel color. It's so good. And if it looks a little split, just keep mixing it and it'll come together. This is the proteins and the tahini working. So you've just gotta give it a good mix and it almost looks like caramel. It's so good. Then whack in your black vinegar. If you don't have black vinegar, you can use normal rice wine vinegar. That's absolutely fine. I'm just gonna take the peppercorns off the heat because I can smell that they're getting aromatic. If you leave them on the heat too long, then they can be prone to burning. And that's gonna give like a really bitter flavor through the sauce and you don't want that at all. Give that another mix. Smelling excellent. Add in your sugar. I'm using brown sugar here. If you don't have brown sugar, white sugar is okay as well. So I'm gonna add in the chili oil. I mean, I love chili oil because it gives that like heat and umami-ness through it. Whoop. Then for the peppercorns, we need to grind up into a fine powder. I'm just using a pestle and mortar here. Pestle and mortar? Not 100% sure how you say it. No. I'm just using a pestle and mortar here and we're going to grind up the peppercorns into a fine powder. And you can really smell the aroma coming through. You want to go as fine as you can because otherwise it can get a little bit gritty. Looks perfect. It's a fine powder and we're just going to add that straight into the sauce. That's our sauce done. And we're going to use that in the dan dan noodles later. Now I'm gonna make the beef that is going to top the noodles. So this is almost like a swap for your spag bowl. This is like the ultimate dish. We're gonna add in some sesame oil and cook the beef off. We've got it on a high heat. Just, you wanna caramelize that beef off. Break it all up. And we're not using loads. It's only about 200 grams for 2 people. So, a bit lighter on the beef. Break it up. You want that really hot. We're going to cook that for about 4 minutes and then we can add in the rest of our spices. This is already starting to smell delicious. The first time I had dan dan noodles was in the streets of Xi'an in the Muslim Quarter. The street food there is delicious. It's so good. Everything is cooked to order and the smells that you get during the street, it's like nothing else. And there's such a fusion of different flavors where you've got cumin, chili and Szechuan all coming together in this melting pot. If you ever get to go, definitely go to Xi'an because the food there is epic. Okay. Now the beef is caramelized off. I'm just gonna add in 5 spice. And a bit of soy, as well as some Shaoxing wine. This is just going to deglaze the pan, so you can just cook this down slightly. It's starting to smell sweet and aromatic. And give a pinch of white pepper. If you don't have white pepper, just crack in some black pepper. That's just as good. This is just going to reduce and get sticky and delicious. Once this is reduced into a syrupy consistency, we can add in the hoisin. And that'll just coat the beef beautifully. And that's now ready. I mean, look at that. So good. Smells so good. So we've got a pot of water on and we're just gonna cook some pak choi to garnish. I'm gonna season the water. Make sure you season your water, otherwise there's no flavor in your veg. Also, a little trick to keep your veg green, whack in some baking powder. This actually breaks down the cells of the veg quicker, so it keeps your veg nice and green. Just gonna whack in. Go. Go, friends. Do your thing. The pak choi are gonna take about 2 minutes until they're beautiful and tender, and then we're gonna reserve them until we're ready to plate. Before we make the noodles, we just need to put on some chicken stock on a simmer. I'm just gonna heat that on a low simmer. Then we're gonna grab that noodle dough that we left resting earlier. I'm just gonna roll it out slightly. Might still be a shaggy mess, but that's all right. It's all gonna become smooth very soon. Get your pasta maker out and we're going to make the noodles as if you were making pasta. So clamp it to your bench and then roll the dough out so it'll go through on the widest setting. Cool. We're going to roll the dough through the widest setting and then do a book fold as if you were making pasta. Just going to fold it into 3 and then roll it again. And then put it through the pasta machine on the widest setting one more time. The dough needs to go through the machine at least 3 times. To help it along, I'd cover the dough in some corn flour. Try not to make a mess like me. Just gonna stick the dough through. Then you can put the dough through the pasta machine and go thinner and thinner and go down in numbers until you get to about a 5 or a 6. You don't want to go too thin. And keep the dough well dusted. I'm now going on to 3, so just go down in number step by step. Don't skip any, otherwise you could get some tearing. So I'm now on 4. It's really nice if you put the dough over your hand to give it some extra control. I'm now going to 5. Okay. And as it gets thinner, you'll feel the dough getting stronger and smoother. Now I'm at setting 5 and I don't want to go any thinner. It's still got that thickness to it, and this is perfect to make the noodle dough. So you want to go to a medium thickness on your pasta maker. Your pasta machine might be slightly different, but you can tell that it's got that nice thickness to it to give that beautiful chew when you actually bite down into that noodle. You want to make sure the dough is fully coated in flour, in corn flour. Make a big mess. Then you want to go on to the thinnest setting on your pasta cutter. Now, I'm going to cut it in half, otherwise you're going to get really long noodles and you're going to get a Lady in the Tramp moment, and nobody wants that. I'm going to pull it through. And as it goes through, you want to catch it on the other side with your hand. And you should get beautiful noodles. Okay, I'm going to put the second lot through, trying to catch it, if it's going to catch. Oops. Now our noodles are ready to boil. They're only going to take seconds, about 30. So make sure everything else is ready before you add your noodles to the pot. Okay. Give it a little shake as they enter the pan because you don't want any clumping, and you can see they might like rise to the surface, but do give it about 30 seconds. You should have your chicken stock ready. Give your beef a little warm if it's been sitting. So I'm just gonna heat that up. They're good to plate up now, so we can take our noodles off the heat. Put your chicken stock into the bowl. I'm going about 100 grams per person. So we're going to take our noodles out of the boiling water and put them in a bowl. Make them look as pretty as you can because they're noodles, and it's basically like a beautiful ramen. All about that. You can give them a little twirl to make them look fancy. Then we're going to finish it off with our beef. Which has been caramelizing beautifully. Our pak choy. And then, of course, we have our tahini soy sauce. You might just want to give it another little stir. And then, depending on how spicy you like it, big spoon or a small spoon. I'm going to go for a big spoon. To garnish the plate, I've got some spring onions, peanuts, and pickled chilies. I'm just going to add these to the bowl. A few peanuts. That's going to give it a bit of richness. And these beautiful pickled chilies, because more heat is always good. That's my Dan Nan noodles. Enjoy.